Hey, hello there. Welcome to Talking with Tony, the Super Bowl edition of Talking with Tony with the Super Bowl analyst himself, the super analyst, Danny Arp. Danny, I want to welcome you back to the show, and I know where you are in Columbia, South Carolina. You guys have been hit by a wintry mix. You just coming off a previous storm that hit North Carolina and parts of your territory over there. So it's messed up my travel to Memphis, and we had trouble getting Tara out to San Diego and back. But it's nice to see you on the camera today, and I see a sunny backdrop for you, and I know that you're counting down the days till you'll be on the island.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I put that up to try to motivate myself today. After 2 weeks, usually you get a snowstorm, it aggravates me. Now I got two back to back. Last week's pretty decent. It hit us with a little ice, but it got as good as this weekend. That was a lot of snow. But the sun came out, as Annie said, the sun will come out tomorrow, right? It melted it all away. Or, the main roads anyway. So that would make it into work. We're limping through and then we'll see how it goes from there. I hope that's the end of it. You called it though, man. I'll give you that. You nailed it. You and I discussed it back in when you came up for the unfortunate trip. Uh, but we discussed the weather, and I was telling you, nah, I think it's going to be easy. Just cold here or there. But you called it was going to be a rough winter, and you nailed it.
And for what it's worth,
Pucks Tony Phil agreed with you this morning as well.
yeah, for what it's worth. I mean, let's face it, that's whoever is in the under the hat deciding, whether or not he saw a shadow or not. So,
Yeah.
uh,
But then I can't, like you said, man, I'm headed out here in about 19 days. I'm getting on and see if I can't find a pineapple in Mai Tai somewhere.
you packing the sticks to take with you, or will you
I'm
rent
gonna rent.
clubs
I'm gonna rent.
there?
I'm gonna actually ship. I'm gonna take Allie hers, and I'm gonna rent. I'll rent some while I'm over there.
Okay.
We're gonna play
Uh,
that a la we, not the one they played the tournament on, but the one right there across from it. So
I love Allie. I think she's amazing, and I think what she's doing is already working on her professional career is very commendable. But she claimed that there wasn't enough room in her bag to pack up that winter win. So maybe you can take the book That Winter Win over there to you, over there to her, and she can read about her father.
I'll take her to three series. I'll take her the full series. Get her to go after it. I'll tell her maybe start read the first one and skip to that winter win. So.
Okay. And speaking of my books, I want to lead off today, take a little moment to Mark Markey's passed away Friday, and he was Stanford baseball coach for 41 years, beginning in 1977, I believe. And I worked it out in the book to where my protagonist played baseball at Stanford and played baseball for, we call him Nine. Everybody in the baseball community just called him Nine. He was just a legend, and that was his jersey number. But Miles's final game for Stanford would have been Mark's final game coaching Stanford also would have went out. And I thought that was kind of a cool thing. And this guy just touched a lot of lives. He did a tremendous job for USA Baseball, developing it, getting baseball back in the Olympics in '92. I just hated for him. He was a young guy, led Stanford to back-to-back national championships in '87 and '88. Danny was over at UGA when UGA had a big College World Series 1990, I believe. Of course, Stanford was part of that college, World Series there. But it's interesting. It kind of just hit home with me since I used him as Miles's baseball coach for him to pass away. He was roommates his freshman year with Mitt Romney, and I kind of used that in the book as well before Mitt transferred to Brigham Young. But it shocked me, Danny, to hear the news. And Carol Peterson of ESPN wrote a very nice piece about the difference that he made in his life. But that's what you want in a coach. You want people who not only can grow you as a baseball player and develop you, but also develop you off the field as a human being. And this guy, he certainly believed in that. He had great attention to detail, but he gave his players a lot of freedom because he trusted them to come in and do the work themselves.
Yeah, you get coaches like that, and well, there's a lot of them. You could start naming off, but they just have such a dedication to processes, have a dedication to what they're doing. But the real thing is, like you said, dedication to the people, right? You're coaching, you're spending time with them, you're developing, not just about wins and losses. It's about developing that winning attitude, that process, and those kind of coaches, you know, the wins translate, right? Because what you put in, the output is what you expect, right? So he's a great one again that we lost, and I'm sure there'll be more to come. But that's a tough one, and it's pretty cool how you had it in your book, you know.
Yeah, he just joins a growing list of those legends from that era who have passed. Ron Frazier at Miami and Augie Garrido at Cal State Fullerton, and very late in his career at Texas. I mean, the list is long. I mean, just Gene Steve, it just keeps going on and on. But that's what's going to happen, over the course of time. He was coaching when Ron Polk was at Mississippi State, and later at UGA, and Gary Ward at Oklahoma State. Cliff Gustafson at the time was at Texas. He's passed away too, I believe. So, but that's going to happen over time of when he coached 41 years, beginning in 1977. I mean, that's quite a career.
Yeah, that's a long time, man. I mean, you start thinking about we're 30 some years out of high school now. I've been doing this job for 31 years. I mean, it's crazy. 14 more, 13 more. Um, but you think about baseball in itself is it's supposedly the slow sport, the American pastime, but the beauty of everybody you know backing up like they're supposed to, running out the hit, all those things that they do in practice. And if you've never tried to coach baseball or softball, similar sport, right? A few little different rules, but it's a lot harder than you think it is. When you start talking about the drills and what you got to do to get people in place, you just jump off. And I never really played. I played baseball young, didn't do it once I got to the junior high level, switched to some other sports, but I never did really get it. And then I tried to coach some of my kids' teams. I think I netted a nice 2-15 record. It was a bad deal, man. It was a
Well, at
bad.
least you're honest about it. Hey, something I didn't even talk to you about before the show. There's a singer, Deborah Allen. Jake can find this. It's her Wikipedia page, uh, and not to be confused with Debbie Allen, but Deborah
Right.
Allen. And she had country music top 10 hits in the 80s, and a crossover that was number 10 in 1980, in the top 10 in 1984, Baby I Lied. It was like number 3 or number 4, made the pop charts. I've been in communication with her over this past weekend. She was on a magazine cover. It's called the 9019, and then
Hmm.
the OH, and then dash one, spelling out one instead of the numbers 901. That's her Wikipedia page. That's the cover photo. Just I remember her being pretty, man. She was just stunning looking, and it's nice. She's 72 years old now, but we've had a good exchange back and forth. She's a believer, and believes in a lot of the things that are in the books that I write. But I wanted to ask you, do you remember her? Do you remember that song? Because you were well versed in music, and "Baby I Lied" was probably her biggest hit. But like maybe another song, "I Hurt for You" or "The Hurt for You." So there was other big. She had 14 country hits, and at least one that made the crossover, because this week in 1984 it was on the charts.
Yeah, I remember Baby I Lied. I mean, I'm not going to sing it for everybody, but I do
Uh,
remember that song. And Nobody's Fool, I think, was another one she
yeah,
had.
that's right.
But if you think about it, we were young then. I mean, 86, we both like what 16 or something like that. And
I wouldn't. I was younger than that, but
well, you
yeah.
like
So
you got advanced a couple of grades, didn't you?
yeah,
You were so
yeah,
advanced.
yeah,
I'm just anyway. My point is, definitely an older lady at the time for us. But to your point, very attractive lady in 1986. Anybody checks out that cover you're talking about, I think I remember it. All those country ladies all had that same sort of look in that time.
yeah. Yeah, and there is I found this last night just searching for on Sirius the XM app. There is a channel of hers that plays, people like Lacey J. Dalton and Patty Loveless and Barbara Mandrell and some of the other singers of that time. It's not bad music. I'm not going to lie to you, man. 84, 85, 86. There was a lot of other artists that made it over to the Alabama made it over to the pop
Yeah,
charts. Ronnie Millsap made it to the pop, made it to pop. There's plenty of crossover back in the day.
yeah. I mean, of course, again, we do. You go and you relive them. The older you get, and maybe go back and play them again. But I didn't. We probably weren't paying much attention to it, and in high school, we're more into the John Hughes films and those songs and Depeche Mode and Prince and all those folks, you know.
Some
But
Depeche
they
Mode.
were hits. They were hits. They did make the top 40 charts and all that good stuff. So, I mean, we
Favorite
heard them,
Depeche
but it
Mode
wasn't
song,
like my favorite.
my favorite Depeche Mode song would technically be 1990, Enjoy the Silence.
Oh,
But
yeah.
when I think about their, you're right. You kind of think about the 80s with their hits. And, Martin Gore doesn't even like some of the stuff that crossed over to those pop charts and
Yeah.
those and won't play those songs
And
anymore.
that's my point.
So
It was more of a, I mean, they were good songs and they were not just strictly country songs. So they did cross over into the pop hits, but they were not, pop of the 80s as we hear it. You put it
if
on
you go
80s on
see
8, 80s on 8, you're not going to hear it unless you're on a countdown year. I'll tell you that.
And if you go see Depeche Mode these days, you are not going to see People Are People, and that's a shame
No.
because it's a great tune. So
Well, I
uh,
won't, you won't have to worry about that with me. I won't be going to see Depeche Mode, but I'm just
well,
saying.
Gary Roberts would go with me to see him,
Yeah, there you go. That's
and
who
my
you
wife
need.
would, and the mayor of Auburn, Alabama, Bill Ham, because through the years I've made him play so much Depeche Mode on his Apple phone and or his, but Apple Music. So yeah, it's kind of cool. Danny, we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to get to the game, the Seahawks and the Patriots. I want to talk a couple of Super Bowl memories with you, and a lot of my memories go back to New Orleans. And I was telling producer Jake Barton, my favorite all-time Super Bowl uniform is when the Patriots were in '86 against the Bears. Those beautiful, gorgeous red jerseys with the Patriot hiking the ball. And I remember being young, hanging out with you some right around that time, and being worried that the people in Massachusetts would be able to like see the game because of all the bad weather that they have and power going out and that kind of thing. And the Patriots had done an amazing deal at the time. They'd won 3 games on the road to get as a wild card team to get to this point. And I just remember if people were trying to go out to like a sports bar with snow, would they be able to get home, safely and all that? It turns out that they jumped out to an early lead, 3-0, and it was pretty much downhill from that standpoint. The Bears really took over the game, and it seems like I didn't look it up, but it seems like it was 46 to 10. But those uniforms were my favorite Super Bowl uniforms of all time. I want to get feedback from you first on how you feel about those uniforms they wore that night.
Hey, I love those uniforms. I mean, those are just classic. And again, you really wanted them to win, to your point. I mean, but everybody in the whole country at the time was on the Bears. I mean, they had everything going on up there. They had
Super
all
Bowl shuffle.
had the great players, McMahon, Fridge, had the song on the radio, in the 80s. That's another thing about the 80s. Anything came up, you're gonna write a song about it. That's why I'm saying this transition to the pop charts was not always as big as an accomplishment as you think it was. I mean, you had Ghostbusters, but Super Bowl Shuffle was it. Watching the Bears dance was pathetic in that music video. But again, that may have been one reason I wanted the Patriots to win so much as well, because I was burnt out on the Bears, but it was not a good day for them.
It was not a good day, but when I think about those Patriots uniforms, I think this was John Hanna's final game, number 73, one of the best offensive linemen to ever play in the NFL. I believe that was the final game that he ever played. And I think about, the quarterbacks, Grogan and Eason, 14 and 11, Craig James, number 32, Raymond Claiborne in the defensive backfield, Broderick Thomas, defensive end, Irving Fryer, the wide receiver. When you see those uniforms, you can't help but remember those names. And just like for the Bears, Dan Hampton on that defensive line that was so dominant, and Walter Payton and Matt Suhey in the backfield. Obviously, you talk, Jim McMahon prominent in the Super Bowl shuffle with his sunglasses and all, and Buddy Ryan with the 4-6 defense and all. It's just so much there about you and I used to talk. Saturday Night Live used to do a great thing with the whole the Bears thing. And there was that one time where you and I were joking around. I don't know if we invented it or if we heard it on there. Well, we go, suppose you got the Indianapolis 500. You got the world's greatest automobile race, or the world's greatest drivers, the fastest drivers in the world. You got Rick Mears, you got Emerson Fittipaldi, you got Johnny Rutherford, and you got the Bears team bus. You go, wait a minute, is Dicka driving the Bears team bus? Dicka's driving the Bears team bus. I'll take Dicka in the Bears team bus.
The Bears, you say, yeah, that's right. The Bears could do no wrong back then. But yeah,
No.
you're right, man. I mean that. that Patriots uniform was a trip. I don't know what it is about the white pants, you know. I mean, that
Hmm.
was the one with the red and the white pants, right? The
And
red.
it's not easy to make those white pants look good, but the
No,
red uniforms did.
that's like practice pants. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you wear your practice, you wear your pants, white pants in practice, but they pulled it off great on the TV. It looked good when they started.
And Sullivan owned them back then. That was right before Kraft got them, and the reason Kraft later ends up with them after another Victor Kiam and all after transition was the Sullivans went heavy into the to the Jacksons victory tour. That was an absolute nightmare. They paid the Jacksons way too much money up front, and they had brokered a deal to have concerts in all these NFL stadiums. But the Jacksons had this huge stage that took out some seats, and then they ran into bad weather and they lost, seats there, and they went bankrupt, and they had to sell. And then later on, Kraft, I think Kraft first got the stadium, and then he, gets the team. I kind of tie all that back together, and I try to remember what that team did though by winning those 3 games on the road. That's a hard thing to do in the NFL playoffs. And even though they were killed in the Super Bowl, I try not to overlook their path to the Super Bowl. I'm talking they beat the Raiders, they beat the Dolphins, of course, in Miami in that AFC Championship game. It wasn't even close, and Miami had a long win streak against them playing in Miami. So I try not to overlook the route that the Patriots took.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can go and do something like that, it's awesome. And again, you make it to the Super Bowl, it's a big deal. You know, you hate to see them lose, but I know, not just beat a dead horse, but it was pretty obvious the Bears gonna win that thing.
And then tragedy hit the country the next day. You and I watched on CNN was live covering the space shuttle. This would have been Challenger. Of course, later there's Columbia itself had its own tragedy, but this would have been Challenger where the Challenger blew up, and a lot of people like us were out for school. We had snow, and that was the
No, they
reason
yeah, just like
that we
like
were
right
out.
now.
But that was one of those defining moments that if you saw it, you remember you never forget where you were.
Yeah, I was we got snow day. I'd gone out and been chopping wood. I mean, it's crazy, junk we used to do, but I was just, I was out getting up wood, loading up some wood, keep the fire going. Everybody had a fireplace back then. And then we were all going to watch the launch, and it's still almost like couldn't even believe it happened. We didn't have cell phones, tweets, and texts and all that back then. Pretty sure you and I both got on the landline, like, what in the world? But it was just, you just couldn't even believe it happened. You watched it and you saw the big explosion, like, what is going on here? And then
Mhm.
as time went on, you realized just how tragic and what had actually happened. With the cold weather and everything, with the had caused some issues. And that was tragedy for the whole country, man. It brought everybody together. It was a big letdown after, we'd all just had our big Super Bowl moment. But it's
And
great.
for years after Adam Camp, who's preacher over at Rosemont now, he and I went and they let us get as close to the launch as this is probably 89 or 90 that we went down to Cape Canaveral. And they let us get as close to the launch as they'd let anybody get since those days, since the challenge. Back then, they'd had other launches, and we saw Discovery, I believe, take off. But, we were still tremendous way away. But I'll never forget how much the ground just shook as that shuttle starts taking off, and the ground you just feel it vibrating like you think it's going to sink in, and
Yeah.
that was a magical moment that I wish everybody could experience, and we were fortunate to get as close as we got. But I do remember like just kind of once it was safely away, just taking a deep breath, just kind of like I was for a few times thereafter. It's just
Yeah.
there's something kind of patriotic feeling when you see one of those suckers land safely out there in California or Houston or wherever they might like. You just kind of I remember walking on a treadmill 15 years ago and seeing one just safely come down and just smile. You just feel a sense of pride in your country and patriotism at what they've done there.
That was huge. Those shuttle program was a huge deal, and I don't think people certainly now don't take it as serious, what it really meant to us as Americans back then. I mean, the launches were always the biggest thing. And then when they landed, to your point, everybody stopped what they were doing. You watched them bring it in, got the Escalade bringing it in and landing, and we just it was crazy. And good to see that they continued the program after that, and then of course you had, like you said, the Columbia. Um, but that was always a big part of our lives, when we were younger, for sure. And now you don't hear much of anything. You got SpaceX going up and down, satellites everywhere. It's just common deal taking off nowadays and landing.
Yeah, it's lost some of the romantic part of it, it is gone. And I think we should still celebrate it. I still think it's quite a achievement. There's a lot to celebrate in this country coming up, 250-year anniversary. We're about to have the Winter Olympics, which will begin this weekend as this show is airing. And then the World Cup's going to come here, and then the Olympic game, the Summer Olympics. There's going to be a lot to look forward to, and a lot of reasons to be, I think, proud of the country and be patriotic. When I think about my favorite Super Bowls, I usually think about New Orleans or Miami, especially those that took place in the Orange Bowl when we were much younger. But certainly the Superdome and New Orleans. What about you? When you think about Super Bowl cities, what comes to mind?
Well, obviously, never got a chance to go to any Super Bowl. Probably never will. But favorite cities to me, I mean, it's New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans has always been the greatest one. I always loved Superdome. Um, been to a few games there, not Super Bowls, but I like the city. I like the build up. It is perfect for a hosting event, to host an event like that. And so that's one of my favorite. It had some unfortunateness, tragedies there, but it's still a great city. It's an American icon of a city. And then secondly, I'd say Miami, because what the Super Bowl is all about anyways, the stars and the hot people and just say what it is, the rich people getting out and playing, and that's the best city to do it in. I mean, that's just
Yeah,
fact.
well, here, you're right about that. Um,
I stayed in Miami.
most
What I stay a week when we graduated. Remember, I went down and stayed about a week with my dad down there at the 8801 condos, and that was one crazy city, bro. I wish I'd have paid a little more attention in Spanish class. I mean, and I took like four of them, but it was a fantastic city.
um, each year at this time, we do talk about a couple of commercials through the years, and one that always comes to mind, comes to play here, is the one that you brought up with the boys and the Cindy Crawford in the car. Take it through us because Jake does a magical job of bringing this commercial up as you're giving the
We got to make it a
play by play by play.
well.
Pepsi,
Again,
I believe.
to set the stage. All right, we got you know. Commercials always been a big deal, right? And then in the 80s, again, now you don't, when is the last time you seen a soft drink commercial? You get Dr. Pepper with the football, right? So they sort of rule the airways now with the soft drink commercials. But when we were growing up, man, it was two. It was two. You get Coke, you get Pepsi. Now, occasionally you get the Mountain Dew singing some crazy song, but when they tried to launch that on, but it was Coke and Pepsi. And the Super Bowl, we all knew we were going to have some good. You're going to get some good beer commercials too. But the this Pepsi commercial, right? You're sitting there watching two little boys leaning over a fence. They're talking. I can't remember all the verbiage of it. They're just like, "Can you believe that?" You see this car pull up, Ferrari. And they're like, "Man, I wish I had that." And then they zoom over to the car, and Cindy Crawford, obviously the best supermodel of the time, gets out, starts walking, and those boys are just like, man, what I would do to have one of those. And when they zoom back to Cindy Crawford, she's popping a drink on a Pepsi. It was the greatest commercial, man. I mean, I switched to Pepsi for a little while after that commercial, just for the heck of it.
What does she have, like a white t-shirt and
Had
like
on
blue
the had
jean
on cut
shorts or
off, hey, cut off shorts.
okay.
Won't use them for what they were known for back then. We won't say the name, but she had on her cut off blue jean shorts. Had on the tank top, white tank top. I think even cowboy boots on as the shoes. Just crazy, man. And that car was awesome.
No
We
doubt.
all we all loved the Ferrari. Back in the '80s too. That was another thing. If you
There
had
were
a
a lot
Ferrari,
of if you had a Ferrari, what?
well, you wouldn't even we didn't even imagine having a Ferrari in our lives. We couldn't even imagine even driving one. The
I can't
closest you
imagine it
get,
today,
hey, the closest Well, you might could go and Tony, you could probably go out and find you some kind of Ferrari to buy. It might not be too cheap, but you can buy one. I promise you. Go to Facebook Marketplace, search it up, you'll find some raggedy. But you're not going to get one like that, obviously. But our closest thing to that was the old Pontiac Fiero. Somebody
Mm.
say, "Hey, you drive a Ferrari?" No, but I got a Fiero. Have you seen that? So anyway, that was a great commercial, man. That was probably still my favorite Super Bowl commercial of all times.
I don't know if it was a Super Bowl commercial or just a commercial that Coke did with the Mean Joe Green and the kid.
I
That
think it was Super
probably
Bowl commercial. Had to be a
okay.
Super Bowl.
That's my favorite.
Touching.
Kids. Here, kid, catch.
Yeah.
It
It's a
just
touching
hits you.
one, man.
Yeah.
If you think about what sports is and what the lure of sports is, not just all the money and NIL and all that, which is what it is, now. But you believed in the team, you believed in the players, you had longevity with teams like, oh, mean Joe Green stayed up there, right? I mean, he was an icon. And for him to come in, little kids just like, oh, head down and, hey, kid, throws him his jersey. Hey, kid,
Thanks, Mean Joe.
yeah. Yeah, that was touching back then. You do that
And
now.
it,
Like, how
it
corny is
was. And
that
the
guy?
kid was in, such a down time and upset. The
Yeah.
game probably hadn't gone his way. And Mean Joe's struggling to get to the locker room, hurt. And he says, he'll share his drink with him. And then, like, look, here it is. I did not switch to Pepsi. Even though I appreciate your commercial and you bringing it up, it did
Yeah.
not motivate me to switch to Pepsi, not even for an abbreviated amount of time.
I can understand.
I mean,
I
unless Pepsi comes on and sponsors this show full time, I'm sticking with Coke. And like, it's one of life's biggest tragedies is when you go to a movie theater, like the one in Noonan, and you can't even get a Coke icy. It's a Pepsi icy. There is no
Well,
comparison of Coke ices and Pepsi ices.
they should just take that. That doesn't even seem right to have a Pepsi. It just looks terrible. Nobody would want that. If we go to a restaurant now and sit down, and they come up, what do y'all have? Two Diet Cokes, please. Order for myself and my wife. Two Diet Coke. Is Pepsi okay? Actually, it's not. We'll just leave. And there's been a couple of times we paid for the buffet ahead of time, right? And wait when they come, we go get my money back, man. I'm leaving, dude. I'm not drinking Pepsi. I mean, it's just
Well, technically, we're Georgia boys, and with Coca-Cola being headquartered that close to the Lagrange and Noonan area in Atlanta, it's just blasphemous not to drink Coke and
right.
Diet Coke.
Well, and again, we used to get the Cokes. We had the Coke bottling company there in LaGrange. They'd bring it to you for field day. Pop the bottle. I mean, there's no way we're drinking Pepsi, man. We're Coke people for sure.
And Diet Pepsi isn't as good as Diet Coke either, but it's the whole, you can't say uh, Pepsi icy, just or an iced Pepsi just does not even register like an iced Coke does.
Makes no sense. It'd be like saying, "Give
No.
me going into a five and dime, said, hey, let me get a Pepsi float." You
I
don't
mean,
get a Pepsi float, man. You want a Coke float.
Chick-fil-A knows what they're doing by selling the Coke floats now. They
Yeah.
know what they're doing. I mean, I'm sitting here, it's gonna be 20 degrees tonight where I am, and I could go get an icy from a Coke flavored one from the convenience store tonight. I
There you
wouldn't do
go.
it for a Pepsi one though. I
Do
can
it.
tell you that. It's
I was freezing this morning on the way, man. And I mean, I didn't even get coffee. You'd think you'd get coffee for the drive in. It was like 13 degrees up here. I'm chugging a Diet Coke all the way, man. It was delicious.
my hands are so cold. I mean, they're just so cold.
It's
Which
brutal.
I think that means you have a warm heart if you have cold hands. My hands just cannot get warm. They just remain cold.
Well, see, you got a nice heart, or you need to go get your heart checked. One of the two. You got circulation problems, but I think it's the warm heart. I'm going with the warm heart.
I appreciate that. Uh, Before we talk the game itself, any other Super Bowl things you want to mention beforehand?
Mm.
I will say that
I was thinking about. I never went to Glendale. Never been to that city. I know they hosted one or two. I think
I've
Tampa.
been, yeah.
Been to Tampa. That's a pretty cool city. And then Las Vegas one. Now that would have been fun to go to that one. Even though
Uh-huh.
Vegas sort of struggling right now, but that's the perfect place to have a Super Bowl if you ask me too. For just pure insanity. But no other real things for Super Bowl. I don't want to not bring up the fact that the Falcons lost a 28-3 lead. I don't want to not bring that up every year we do the Super Bowl show because that itself saved my Sundays, really. Church and the Falcons. After that game, church, no, I'm good, man. I go golf, I take a nap, whatever. I ain't watching those Falcons.
Well, we have the PGA Tour back, and we have Brooks Koepka back on the PGA Tour. So I spent my weekend tracking him, even though he was nowhere close to leading. I'm telling you, he's not in great form. He's hitting the ball okay from the fairway to the green. He still can't putt. I've been complaining about his putting for 5 years, and it has gotten no better.
I tell you though, that just goes to show you just how good he was with his irons, man. He was dialed in with the driver, but his iron play was amazing when he was on that run because he couldn't putt. Then, if he didn't hit it in 2 feet, he was missing it.
That's
And
true.
he did it though. He was knocking it up there. And he really cannot putt though, man. It's amazing.
He's still my guy. He's only got 4 wins on the tour that aren't majors, but I do hope that he can get into the victories, winner circle, as we say in horse racing. I hope he can win an event this year. I think that would be very encouraging. I was glad that he
Me
made the cut,
I
this
hope he
past
does.
year.
I hope he does too. Just for him, he's a good player, and I hope he wins one, and it'd be good for the PGA too for him to come
Well,
back
he's
around.
got great history and he's been a winner in Phoenix. So we'll see if he can maybe, be top 30, maybe there. But, there's a lot of room for improvement, with him right now. On Jersey Talk, the Patriots will wear white jerseys. It was their choice. It was the AFC's choice this time on what uniform you wanted to wear. And because the Patriots have not lost in their whites this year, they're wearing the whites, which set up the Seahawks to wear their home jerseys for the Super Bowl. So if you're trying to like visualize what the game's going to look like on Sunday, that's what you need to be looking at. The Patriots will be in their away whites, and the Seahawks will be in their home. I'm gonna give everybody the run down the records. I'm 36 and 28. Danny, this is very interesting. Danny and Fred are both 88 and 86. Uh, John 86 and 88. Stormy and Kevin. Kevin is 80 and 94, and Stormy is 79 and 95. I am 13 and 6 and 5 stars. John is 11 and 8. Stormy is 10 and 9. Fred 9 and 10. Kevin and Danny 8 and 11. Nobody had to say 5 star this time because it was only the one single game. And all I asked them to do is pick the winner. And for purposes of this show, Kevin, Stormy, Fred, and John all went with the Seattle Seahawks.
Wow.
So technically, Danny and Fred are tied for the lead from the panel, so whoever wins the game will win the competition. Unless Danny takes the Seahawks, he and Fred will tie. So it's in your corner there. Do you want to risk it and roll the dice with the Patriots, who are in reality 4.5 point underdogs, or do you play it safe and be happy to tie Fred for the overall title?
Look, Fred's pretty good prognosticator, so I would not be uh disappointed in a tie, you know. But I don't play for those thinking ties, man. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, but looking at it, I'm just messing around. That was like George Kirby not kicking the field goal against Alabama. We just don't play for ties around here. So I see why they're all on the Seahawks. I really do. Right, I really do. The great, both good defenses, but Seahawks offense is definitely exceptional with Darnold, and you got Walker the third, and those great receivers they got, and they also have a fantastic defense. But the Patriots shut down the Chargers, right? Shut down the Texans, shut down the Broncos to get here, and you were just talking about what they did to get to the last one, and we know how that turned out. I'm hoping that it's sort of the same kind of deal, right? I mean, because
Yeah.
Seahawks, everybody's on it. Everybody's on it. It's a pretty big line for a Super Bowl. But here's the thing. I think everyone is off on these picks. I mean, the Pats have 12 postseason sacks since we started playing. They're leading the yards allowed per game. They're the best. They're leading. Well, they're not leading. They're not leading. They're not leading. They're top 4, I think, in yards rushing. And that's sort of been their way to keep this game going, or to keep this streak going and keeping these close games and just taking away defense. They shut Stroud down, man. It's a terrible game. So I like them. If they can keep the rush up, keep the pressure on Donald, I like them to control the game. I'm picking the Patriots as the champs. What say you?
I agree. I'm going to go with the Patriots, not necessarily because I believe they're actually going to win, but because I'm just that anti Jackson Smith Jimba, who plays for the Seahawks, who refused to play in that iconic Ohio State Georgia game in the semifinals 3 years ago in Atlanta when Ohio State missed the field goal in the final seconds. If he plays, I think Ohio State wins. I think he's the offensive MVP of the NFL this year. But he said his hamstring hurt too much, and he ruled himself out on the day of the announced the matchup, 3 weeks prior to the game even played. He hardly played his junior year. He went pro after his junior year. I haven't cared for the guy since, and he's going to be getting a lot of accolades of the season that he's had. And I hope the Patriots shut him down. And I'd like for it to be Carlton Davis, if at all possible, the former Auburn Tiger. But also, I believe in Drake May. And I believe in his ability to run the ball when he's in a real tough situation and be able to read the pocket. And I know he's going to be under pressure because the Seahawks front is tremendous. But I think he can bail his team out a little bit. And a little part of me is also hoping that Travion Henderson, the running back from Ohio State, who is not, he had a good first half of the season, but he's cooled off a lot in the second half of the season. Maybe he gets some touches and perhaps finds the end zone in the Super Bowl. But I'm going to go with the Patriots. If they knew who was going to win, they wouldn't play it. And everybody else seems to be picking the Seahawks except Danny and I. But we're together on this,
Good.
Danny. I've already locked up the 5-star record. I don't make myself eligible for the overall because you guys pick more games than I do. Now you have a chance to get the gold medal in Olympic terms with the Winter Olympics starting. And if you misfire, hey, landing on the podium with a silver medal, that's not bad.
I gotta say, I like it. I honestly think when we get done here, I'm gonna be on top. So I like it. I think it's gonna be a great game to watch. I can't wait to watch it. Hope it doesn't turn out like the '86 one you referenced, but I don't think it will. Too good a defense. It's too good a defense.
I got 10 seconds. Final thoughts before we wrap it up.
Hey, I hope everybody has a great rest of the week and weekend, and go Pats.
Yeah. For Jay Barton and for Danny Arp, I'm Tony Jones. The other members of the panel, all on the Seahawks. Danny and I taking the New England Patriots. Enjoy the Super Bowl, and we'll see you next time right here on Talking with Tony.